So, with the blood tests, in New Zealand, HbA1c, it's a fight to get even fasting glucose or fasting insulin tested over here, Yeah, I know.
Same in the NHS in the UK.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're not measuring insulin, which is the most important measure of all. And
so,
oh.
Yeah, people say, the doctor said my tests are normal and that HbA1c is creeping up and up. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, the HbA1c is a very late stage indicator, as we would say in engineering. So the A1c is the measure of your long-term blood glucose levels, and glucose in the blood is damaging to many other components, including your red blood cells. So the HbA1c just measures the amount of damage that the blood sugar has caused to your red blood cells. And they have a life of around 3 months or so. So it gives you your kind of average blood sugar level over a few months. Whereas your fasting glucose can pop up and down a bit each day. So it's good in one way. The problem is by the time your HbA1c starts going up out of control, you've been diabetic for maybe 20 years. So it's very late. It's fine if you are type 2 diabetic and you're trying to monitor your control, but it's not good to say, whoa, you look like you're heading to diabetes. It's nearly useless for that. So is fasting glucose. They have a pre-diabetes is above 6, but if you're up at 6 or above, you've been diabetic for a decade.
Yeah.
And actual full diabetic is above 6.5, which is like crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And it's just such poor control, isn't it? And then, what? Sorry, carry on.
There's just the one measure, just that we're on the topic, Susan. So the best simple measure for the person in the street who doesn't want to measure all their hormones and all their vitamins and loads of blood tests, the best thing is a fasting glucose and a fasting insulin. And with those two simple fasting measures, without needing to drink sugar drinks and 2 hours later measure your insulin, which is an amazingly good test, but that gets complicated. Doctor will think you're insane. So your fasting glucose, your fasting insulin, and you put them into the HOMA calculator online, HOMA calculator. And it gives you this insulin resistance index, which is a really quick and easy thing to do. And if you're above 1.8, you got a problem. If you're below 1.2 in that, you're pretty good to go. So a nice simple way to say, am I insulin resistant in a problematic way or not? And it'll tell you very early in your journey if you've got a problem. So the people with the A1C that goes above 6.5 and they get diagnosed with type 2, overwhelmingly those guys 15 years before would have failed that HOMA. They would have been up at 1.9 or 2.6. So it's a great, easy test if you can get a good doc who just lets you get an insulin along with the glucose.
Yeah, insulin is still not funded in New Zealand, but it's not an expense. I think it's about $45 or $50 or something. So you
do you have the option to pay yourself? In Ireland, there's a lot of independent.
So we try and encourage people to get them through the Ministry of Health. I think that they have we pay our taxes to do that, but you can get them, you can self-fund and go and get some of these tests done. So insulin is one of the self-funded tests.
Well, yeah, if it's only around $50, it's one of the most important tests you can do. Yeah. And it's like the calcium scan, we'll probably talk about too, but it might be a few $100s. It might not be reimbursed, but it's the price of a service for your car. And as my ex-sponsor, David Bobbitt, used to say, you'd certainly get your car serviced to make sure the brakes weren't failing and they could kill you. Absolutely. And you spend a few $100s to find out and to get it fixed. But people think a few $100s is a lot for a calcium scan, which is the ultimate test, the best test in the world for heart disease.
It's about, I think it's getting up around about $800 here.
Oh, that's quite, because in Ireland it's around, I think, 350 of your dollars. In England, it can be 600 or 700 of your dollars. And America, it could be 160 of your dollars. So it varies. So that sounds like it's expensive. So you need to shop around.
And, you know, I asked my GP for a referral because you can't self-refer. And so he said I had to see a cardiologist, which I just didn't want to go down, you know, I just didn't want to have that conversation. So I haven't sort of followed up or done anything further about that.
Yeah, and you know, probably the crucial cohort is, well, the guideline for people on the scan in America now in 2018, they finally fixed the guidelines. And, you know, men in their 40s, women in their 50s, you know, with middle risk, which is most people have middle risk when you go through the algorithms for heart disease. So that's most people. And it's low cost. And I think in Ireland, it's only a GP or a doctor referral, not a cardio. But some of them have said you need to go to cardio, but that's incorrect in Ireland. And in New Zealand, you may find that that's actually not legally true. That you need a medical professional to approve it because it's a significant kind of procedure with a little bit of radiation.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't need a cardiologist.
No, he's probably, I guess with my cholesterol levels, he was probably protecting himself, you know. He's pretty good, my GP. I don't have too many complaints. And he didn't give me a lecture about taking a statin either, although we have had that conversation once before. So, but, you know,
I'll say
my GP is pretty good. But he probably just really didn't want to take that risk, I would say.
Yeah, possibly. Now, some GPs, because of the high cholesterol, they would be pro getting a scan because they'd be genuinely worried. Now, they'd be incorrect, but they would be generally worried, and they might want the scan to say, well, you'd better get the scan because you've had 17 cholesterol for years. Oh my God, you're going to die. It'll be my fault. So you might get that from some of them, but he seems like a reasonably balanced guy.
Yeah. I better get you to explain what the scan is for people. A lot of people have probably never heard of it.
Yeah, well, the calcium scan, it's simply a CT scanner. So it's not like, you know, claustrophobic MRI. It's just the standard donut CT scanner where you just slide in and your head is outside it. And it does a high-speed X-ray, and it essentially sees any calcium in your coronary arteries. So the key thing is, this is not about the calcium test, your blood calcium, nothing to do with that. It's not about calcium supplements or how much calcium you eat. So it's not those things. What it is the calcium is brought into your arteries when they're inflamed, like we talked about, when the arteries are under pressure, where there's plaque growing, you know, inflamed plaques occur in your arteries and spots, and they can burst if they get big enough and allow the material out to block an artery and give you a heart attack. But when your body is making lots of plaques, what follows fairly quickly is your body senses this problem, and there's a defense mechanism that it brings in calcium and bone matrix components, and it actually begins to try and shore up and solidify these dangerous areas so that they don't rupture. And it creates microbone all over your arteries if you've got bad atherosclerosis, okay? So the beauty is the scan gets to invisibly just look in and see the calcium in 2 minutes. And suddenly you know how much of the problem you have. And the beauty is that a 0 score, let's say 55 years of age, means a very low chance of a heart attack in the next 10 years, as you can imagine, because your body has not needed to put in any calcium. That means there's very little soft plaque or any problem. And the risk of in 10 years of a heart attack might be like 1 point something percent. It's not 0, because you can get a heart attack from an electrical problem. You could have one big atheromatous plaque, one big one from a genetic weakness, and that might be quite big and could rupture, but the scan in general will see a healthy artery. So it's not 100% safe, but say you're 1 point something percent risk with a 0 score. If you get a high score like my sponsor, you might be 30% risk. So a high score versus a low or a 0 can be 15 or 20 times more risk of a heart attack. Whereas cholesterol, having your cholesterol numbers off might be 1.2 times more risk, or 1.3, or having high blood pressure could be 1.7 times more risk of a heart attack. Whereas calcium scan will tell you, wow, you're 20 times more likely than that guy. So it's the ultimate scan. And the key thing is you get a high score, that's your history. You drove disease up to today when you got a high score. The key is, what do I do now? I know I've got disease. I know something's been very wrong. You know, I was eating my healthy whole grains and orange juice. Okay, got to stop that quick now. And you got to do all the measures.
And adding all my vegetable oils to my salads and
olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, some nut oils. There's loads of real food, crushed real food oils. Now, I don't recommend taking a lot of oils because they have a lot of energy and very little nutrients. But if you're going to have oils, lard, tallow, there's all these real food, crushed oils that come from real foods. But the idea of having sunflower, canola, or any of this junk out of the factory, you know, no way.